Well, hi everybody, and welcome to another Ipswich Town, my favourite Ipswich Town 11. I don't want to say Ipswich Town twice there, but there you go. That doesn't matter. It's all part of the intro. I'm Mike Bacon, and this feature is are you loving it? I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say it was my idea because it was my idea. So I'm not going to everyone else claim it. I don't see why they should, but seriously, everyone seems to be loving this feature with all the different eras we're covering. You know, we're up to date. We're back to the 60s. We've been right the 60s right up to here, and well, as I said, I keep getting stopped. I get stopped. Talking about being stopped in the vets the other day. Well, I'll stop was a couple of days ago, and I was in the post office. Would you believe? I know, yeah, we have the post office, local post office. The guy says, "Love your favourite 11, Mike," and I said, "Well, it's not my favourite 11, but that was that was Ross Hall's." And he said, "Yes." He said, "Well, it was a strange one." I said, "Well, Ross was pretty good." I said, "We mustn't knock him down." But anyway, so nice that you're all enjoying it, and well. Here we are again, another week, another guest, and this guest is this guy is a man who he's used to being the other side of the pod. You see, he's part of the Blue Monday podcast team, and he's usually asking the questions, and now he's got to sit there and be asked questions. He's going to find it very uncomfortable if I start asking him all sorts of strange things about his, I don't know, dietary habits and all this. Well, I won't do, of course, because it's about football. But you know, if I was to, he would be sort of all over the place. But no, look, he does a great job on that podcast, and of course, big Ipswich Town fan. He's going to tell us all about it. When he first started going, and of course. We've got his favourite Town 11 coming up. This would be very interesting. It's Mr. Rich Woodward from Blue Monday Podcast. As I said, Rich, lovely to see you on this fine morning. I mean, obviously, my shutters. I heard you on the pod the other day. My shutter man Graham was in, and he's put some shutters up. Yeah, do you like them? Yeah, good. Yeah, how are you, Rich?
I'm very good. Yeah, this is kind of the busy bit of the pre-busy bit, if that makes sense, of the season. So plenty for us to talk about, kits and pre-season friendlies, and we were chatting about Speedway. So it's a fun time, plenty to chat about. And as you say, yeah, really uncomfortable being the other side. So we use the same recording software as you guys, and I'm used to having so many more buttons and things I can press. So you'll have to forgive me if you hear me clicking a mouse. It's just kind of useful. It's just habit. So no, thank you for having me on. You're obviously running out of important people to talk to, so I'm happy to fill up the rest of the best of the rest, as it were.
Oh, you got it in one, Rich. Yeah, no, you're not at all. Not at all. I'm glad we had a little chat about Speedway as well, Rich. That's very nice. Off pod, we had a quick little Speedway catch up there, which was very impressive. I always like that when my guests know a bit about Speedway, which is fantastic. So, but anyway, look, it's not about Speedway. It's about Ipswich Town, and it's about my favourite Town 11. And Rich, well, look, hey, tell us, when did this love affair with the Blues begin? Then, Rich, when, where, and how?
Yeah, so unofficially, I got into some trouble a few years ago on Twitter when I kind of bemoaned people taking their newborn kids to football, and my dad was never ever going to go down that route. So my first game off, I think it was 8 or 9, but what he did really cleverly was he'd go to games and bring me back a program and this kind of mystical world that existed behind closed doors. You just want to find more and more about it, and then you start. This will age me and maybe give a few insights as well to my team. You start collecting Pro Set cards and you start doing Merlin sticker albums, and then suddenly the interest is there. So, yeah, that was a few years before my first game, which was in the 91-92 season. So I couldn't have picked a better one to start with. And it was Liverpool in the FA Cup, 0-0, very windy day. Walkie hit the bar. We should have won. And obviously, probably more famously was the replay the replay at Anfield and 3-2 after extra time with some controversy in there. But yeah, that was it. Hooked. And then ever since, yeah, God, some 20 years on, is it? I'm trying to do the maths. Yeah, probably about that. Still going strong.
Oh, excellent. That was a cracking. Yeah, of course, that's a cracking. Well, the 0-0 draw at home wasn't that cracking, but certainly the replay was. That little period, those couple of games there in the FA Cup, it really told a lot about that season. I thought, Rich. I mean, I know you're very young, obviously, but I mean, we've obviously won promotion that season, and it's sort of like. That FA Cup, just all this, because we have now, quick question, all this stuff about you can't have a promotion drive and you've got to throw all the cups away just to concentrate on the league. That was a classic year where it's exactly what we didn't do and we still got promotion. Thoughts?
Yeah, and I've spoken to Simon Milton about this on Blue Monday, and he was almost of the opposite school, which is that cup run, their form got better. They went on winning runs before every tie of the round, and then rocked up at Anfield with no fear And you kind of think, well, this is the kind of place that if we want to get promoted, we're going to need to go to.
Yeah.
Man, what confidence that would have given. I know the squads weren't as big back in 91, 92, but I'm of the school of thought. I know they're the League Cup maybe to a lesser extent, but take the cups seriously, because it's no such thing as kind of an uncompetitive game. You learn something. You get confidence if you're a team out of form, and the way that we've approached the cup, particularly in the Marcus Evans era, is pretty depressing, frankly. And I'm hopeful that this season under Kieran McKenna, we might get a trip to Wembley if we win the Pizza Cup, the Johnson, whatever it is. It's one of 6 or 7 teams that have never been to Wembley, the new Wembley. This is the kind of stuff where memories are made in the cup. Not finishing 11th in League One or what have you. So I'm of the school of thought that give the cup your attention. Treat it with respect. Hopefully we will this season.
Well, I hope so, Rich, because quite frankly, the last decade has been an absolute shambles of not treating the cup with respect. It's got absolutely nowhere. I mean, we might as well just do it just for the sake of just doing it, really. We don't need an excuse as to what it might do. It quite frankly has not worked not taking the cup seriously. So, hey, let's take the cup seriously and see what happens.
Exactly right. And I've got players in here. I'm thinking one in particular. It's a League Cup moment, but these are the goals that I think back on, when we're playing Chelsea or Man United in the mid-90s. I've got a goalkeeper who famously made amazing saves in, I think it was the 3rd or 4th round, that was on and interviewed on Match of the Day by John Watson afterwards. So typically your memories actually come from doing quite well in the League Cup, as opposed to, if you're not going to get promoted, doing quite well and finishing mid-table in the league. So yeah, I think we agree on that one, Mike.
Absolutely, we certainly do. We look forward to the Papa John's Trophy file later in the season. That's one of the
double
key fixtures I like to identify when the fixtures come out. The Papa John's Trophy final, I think it's in April sometime. Anyway, look, that's enough of all that. We're getting now to Richard's favourite town 11. That's why we're here. And well, Richard, look, hey, you can give us a little formation if you want. I mean, some people like formations. I personally hate them. Don't mean nothing to me, but a lot of people love a good formation and then get formation, and then perhaps we'll start with the goalkeeper, obviously.
Yeah, well, I just watched, when we record this, Rob Chandler's one, which frankly is going to put in terms of personnel, a little bit to shame, but it's kind of slim pickings in respect of not having the Robson or the Ramsey era at my disposal. But I'm not going to go for his trusted 2-4-4 formation. And this is kind of where the Football Manager nerd in me kind of comes out. I've gone for a system. I'm going for a 4 at the back, but there are a few. Yeah, there's one position where I'm probably doing a disservice to 2 players, I think, just to crowbar them in. So we've got a 4 at the back, and I've tried to spread it out across the eras that I've seen. So hopefully a tick in the box for at least most management eras, though possibly not with one, and a few bench options, I think, to deal with that situation. So let's start at the back. And again, a few good options here. But my first Ipswich keeper, my first ever Ipswich Town autograph, the nicest man I think I've ever met in person as a footballer, Craig Forrest, is in nets. The Canadian man mountain. The lovely guy. Probably has bad memories of Ipswich Town being in that defence that was maybe getting on a little bit in the 93, 94, 95 seasons, and definitely couldn't have done a huge amount about the goals at Old Trafford in 94, 95, but just kind of a last line of defence. But as I said, as a kind of, I guess I would have been 8 or 9 around, it was similar era to when I did my first game. I'd say Craig Forrest came and did a trophy award ceremony at my primary school. And basically the entire school queued up to get his autograph. And I vividly remember saying thank you to him for signing my scrap of paper. And I think I was probably one of the only ones who said thank you. And he replied very politely back. So I always remember that. You always first autograph, but just generally a great guy and great kits as well, Mike. As you can see behind me, I'm one for my kits, but the grey kind of multicolored jobby, the green one. Yeah, Craig Forrest for me in goal.
Absolute gent, as you say, Rich. That's the thing. I think we've both done podcasts with him over the recent years. We have done back in Ipswich. I'm speaking to him last year about something, and he's still so great, such great affection still for our club. It's lovely. It's like you said, gentle giant. And a very funny story, because he was telling me that when he moved to Ipswich, he actually moved just off Knapton Road in Ipswich when he stayed in Diggs. It was only literally 200 yards from my house. I never knew at the time, but it's bizarre, isn't it? He was saying, and I said, "What you mean that road off?" He goes, "How do you know that?" Because that's my Canadian accent. And I said, "Well, I actually used to live just in Felixstowe." Well, Felixstowe Road. But yeah, absolute gentleman. Very good goalkeeper. See, we talk about a gent and upper. Fantastic goalkeeper, Rich.
Yeah, or shot stopper as well. So that we were talking about the cups. I think I occasionally post goal footage on Twitter under the hashtag ITFC goal machine. I started in sympathy to goalkeepers, putting goalkeeping saves up from ITFC moments in the past, and I put up some saves that he made at Wolves away in the FA Cup. I think it was 93-94, and we were struggling to get past, at the time, second division Wolves, I think it was, or second tier certainly. And he's making these unbelievable saves. I mean, to an extent, and maybe he'd put his hands up, camera saves, but he's still acrobatically keeping us in this cup tie, and does a fabulous interview with John Watson afterwards. So yeah, and as I said before, the last line of defense, this the defense in front of him had done really well to get us promoted, but it largely remained the same, and there's some old tired legs in there by the time we get relegated in 94-95. And to be fair to Craig Forrest, he's doing his absolute best to keep us in the division, but frankly there's a bit of dysfunction ahead of him. And yeah, but I just remember, for such a big guy as well, these acrobatic saves. So good.
Great choice, Richard, the goalkeeper. And as you say, well, and then Craig Forrest, part of a promotion-winning team here at Portman Road. We haven't had that many promotions over our illustrious history. We've had some good ones, but we haven't had that many. So he's part of that. Right, go on. Then you got a back four, you say, Rich?
Yeah. So my back four, a little bit worried about my centre back pairing, and this is the one I struggle with the most. And I'll put this out there, so please reply in the comments below if I've missed anyone here. But 91, 92 onwards, remember, I can't find a quick centre back who it hasn't got an error in him, Mike. And so therefore my back two are a little bit slow, but either side of them there is pace and dynamism. So left to right, I'm going Cresswell, Aaron Cresswell, Jason DeVos, another Canadian gentle giant. What is it about the Canadians? They're just too nice, aren't they? But yeah, certainly a bit of a bruiser at centre back. Alongside him, first yard in the head, could see the trouble coming, John McGreal alongside him. And to the right, again, the dynamism and maybe covering the back if they're a little bit flat-footed, Maurizio Tirico, Mike. So there is some combativeness in there. There is a bit of creativity as well. I like my fullbacks to bomb on. And what I love about Cresswell is set pieces. I'm a big fan of a quality set piece taker, dangerous balls, could score a few as well. And I think possibly isn't a name maybe that you've had so far. And I was trying to find someone from the kind of mid Marcus Evans era. And Cresswell is a rare example. I think maybe a previous incarnation of this team had another player in John Walters who maybe not a huge amount was known or expected of them, but suddenly they blossomed at Ipswich and went on to have really illustrious careers at the top flight. And for me, part of being an Ipswich fan is knowing that we are sometimes not the final destinations for players when they reach their peak. And what Cresswell has done for West Ham, and I think briefly for England, actually gives me a good sense of pride. So Cresswell, DeVos, McGrill and Tirico. There you go.
That's brilliant. Well, Cresswell was terrific. He's done terrifically well, and never forgot his Ipswich roots. I remember talking to Stewart Watson, obviously our chief sports writer, and he used to be able to phone Cresswell when he was at West Ham. He'd always have time to talk to us, which is lovely, and still probably would have if we asked. Well, okay, that's Cresswell. Let's talk about the centre halves. Now, John McGrill. You see, now I'm a great John McGrill fan, mainly because there's two reasons. Firstly, when I was a coach at Woodbridge Town, I coached his son, young Max, who probably gained absolutely nothing from my coaching whatsoever. But John was often there, sort of always popped in and says, "Lovely man, John, absolutely lovely man, and a very class footballer." Rich, very class.
Yeah, again, underrated, and the memories that I think about are McGreal obviously came in the 99-2000 season and was part of that promotion team, but actually blossomed in the Premier League. There were a lot of players in that team who, at a level up, stepped it up even further. And I just remember McGreal scoring goals against Everton, and his face when he scored that headed in that free kick at Goodison, which, you know, we got the draw against United that kind of set that season alight, but wins at Goodison, you know, 3-0, really gave us that confidence. And the best thing about McGreal was you kind of got that intensity, but such a good reader of the game. You know, good centre backs for me. You know, he was never going to be the quickest, but he knew where to be. He could read the game, and I think both he and DeVos have that kind of that instinct, that defender's instinct in spades, and so that's why I kind of went for him. Again, the thought crossing my mind was, you know, I could have put Titus in there in my back too. I remember that again, 2001 season where he burst on the scene as well. I just think McGreal had that consistency, and also alongside DeVos, just real leadership qualities as well.
As you say about DeVos, just quickly going back to forward McGreal, I'm watching Luke Wolfenden these days dribbling the ball out of defence slightly, and he's quite getting bigger and stronger, Luke. And part of me sees a little bit of McGreal in him when he's doing that sort of stuff, because McGreal's comfortable on the ball. I mean, Wolfenden obviously dribbled halfway up the pitch at Rotherham last season, which I don't think, can't remember McGreal doing that. But do you know what I mean? McGreal, because McGreal's at Ipswich Town, of course, still as the under-23, so he's still there. Yeah, I wonder if they have a chat, because I see little things in Wolfenden these days getting a lot more confident on the ball, isn't he? And McGreal was that man.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's quite a few. I think maybe a goal at Portsmouth. I'm struggling to remember there, but he did have that attacking side of his brain as well. Yes. But I think what Wolfenden has done really well, and you know, there was a point, this time last year potentially, where Wolfenden's days at Ipswich were numbered, and now you think he's probably one of our highest value players. You know, and I think if he increases that, the defensive mindedness bit as well, because I think, as you say, creatively, I think he's probably up there with some of the best centre back creatively in the EFL potentially. You know, that's what we've got in our hands here. But I think, what McGreal had, but maybe Wolfenden doesn't yet have, is just that leadership aspect. You know, Wolfenden is a great player in the team, but I think to go to the next stage, I need to be a talker on the pitch. I need to instruct and tell people where to be. I think that's maybe where Wolfenden still has a bit of time to develop, and he's only young, isn't he?
Yeah.
And that's where I think McGreal was certainly didn't have all of Wolfenden's attacking sensibilities, but possibly another attribute that I think is really important for a centre-back, which is communication.
And Voss, the big man, DeVos, lovely man, lovely. Another, you're rightly saying about that. What is about the Canadians? But I mean, good, strong player, wasn't he, Rich DeVos?
Yeah, it's just a shame that maybe we got him as his career was starting to tail off a bit. And I always feel there's two players that I feel really sorry for captaining Ipswich and not getting the success they deserve. One is Luke Chambers, and I really feel sorry for him that his time at Ipswich kind of came at a real low ebb, and he was one who tried to help us swim against the tide that was that relegation in 18-19. And but Jason DeVos is another one, 05-06, is it, or 04-05, where we should have gone up automatically. What a great leader he was in that team. Maybe starting to lose a little bit of pace, not that he had masses of it to begin with, but just had that, like McGreal, that instinct, that nowhere to be, and could always pop up and score a header from a set piece as well, which is something that throughout this team, set pieces is something that I love. I don't know. I'm a bit of a set piece nerd, and the last few years have just so frustrated with me, the lack of goals. DeVos would always score you a goal from a free kick or a corner.
Yeah, so absolutely. You're not wrong there. And DeVos was very much a good man with his head, as McGreal. So you got couple of good centre halves with the heads there. And of course, we finish off we have a whole podcast on Maurizio Taricco. I mean, what a player. I mean, how could we not love him? Came here as an absolute nobody and ended up absolute hero, wasn't he, Rich? Go on, Maurizio Taricco. He's your fourth man in your defence. Yeah,
and he can play either side, to be fair to him as well. Yeah. I love a player who can. And we'll talk about another one of those in a second. But he could play either side. But the reason he's in there, apart from the very good reasons that you've talked about there, is my favourite 11 is tinged with a little bit of sadness and depression, which it has to be as a football fan, right? My history is I've got 2 promotions, I think, and maybe some FA Cup and League Cup semi-finals. That's the kind of extent of my Ipswich Town watching time as a supporter. And so probably the things that I reflect on more is the disappointment. And I remember the entirety of the town, or maybe the county of Suffolk, just being in absolute depression when David Sheepshanks had to kind of sell Taricco to Spurs. I remember being at school and I think we might have had phones by then, possibly not, but just reading the paper, you guys at the time were just, it was just like a lament. The whole, like, all of us were just utterly depressed that, you know, it was inevitable. You know, we've sold players before, and we'll sell them in the future, and it will be, you know, ahead of when we wanted them to leave. And Tirico was one of those where I kind of reflect as my favourite 11 has to be tinged with disappointment and sadness as well, because that's the rich tapestry of football. But when he left, utter depression, because you kind of thought he's the kind of catalyst that gets us that promotion, and we still got in the playoffs, but man, he would have taken us maybe a little bit further, who knows.
And he just got it, didn't he? He just got it. As a player, he just got what the fans wanted. He just knew what we wanted. We hate Norwich, we hate Sheffield, all this sort of stuff. He knew what the fans didn't like. He grabbed that with he loved it, did his goal against Norwich. I mean, he scored once or twice, I can't remember, but just the delight in his face. Yeah.
I think maybe there's a bit of Ipswich Town footballer's brain that suddenly turns on when you score against Norwich, because it does matter more. And once you understand that, I think it's ingrained there forever. And obviously, as football supporters, Ipswich Town supporters, we talk about those goals. You know, again, a player that I hadn't thought about until now, who maybe is on my bench, who scored against Norwich, and I thought was massively underrated, was John Stead. That goal against Norwich when he took his shirt off, and, you know, players like that who suddenly get, you know, Alan Quinn scored in that game as well. Gio scored, I think. You get enshrined in Ipswich Town history for scoring against Norwich. Tirico is in that illustrious list, but obviously he did much more than just score against Norwich. And in terms of this 11 and noting who's alongside him in the centre-back positions, he's got the engine to get up and down. And that goal against Crystal Palace, isn't it? The cheetahs on the plains of the Serengeti, I think the commentator said.
Wonderful script, Rich. I'm enjoying this.
I'm stealing that. That's
doesn't
again
matter. We steal everything. Don't worry.
Trademark. Rich Woodward.
Okay, Rich. So there you go. Your goal in your back four. Go on then. Who are they? Let's so we're all up to date with where we are.
Yeah, so Craig Forrest in goal. Our back four, or my back four: Cresswell, DeVos, John McGreal, Maurizio Tirico.
Perfect. Right. So there's your back four. Right. Move to the midfield. What are you going for? Did you say a 4-4-2 at the start? I can't remember what you said now.
Yeah, I think I've already changed. It's possible.
You've changed formation already?
4-3-3. We're going with the 4-3-3. 4-3. It was a 4 at the back. Always a 4 at the back, but it's a 4-3-3/4-5-1. What I have got, and I said I'm a Football Manager nerd, is I even recreate the Champ Man 0102. I'll have to tweet this later. I've created how the tactics screen looked. It's so sad, but I'm going with it.
We love it. We love it, Rich. You carry on. Go on then. Right. Who are your three in the middle? Who are your three in the middle of the park?
So my screen for the back four / I think just roaming defensive midfielder, and this is the first player that's probably I'm doing a disservice to, is Mickey Stockwell. I had to put Mickey Stockwell in there. Again, one of the nicest people you ever want to meet, but could play in any position. You know, my memories of him, the goal against Wimbledon, where he basically became George Weah briefly, but would just run his socks off for the entire game. You know, one of another memory is kind of towards the end of his Ipswich career, 99-2000. I think he scores a really lovely volley against Charlton, and the whole team celebrate with him. That's how important he was. But, you know, an Ipswich guy as well, so he had to be in there. I could have crowbarred him in a little bit, but he's in there just ahead of my back four. Again, noting that my two centre backs maybe lack a bit of pace.
I mean, the thing is, the Mick Stock was great, wasn't it? Because I mean, you look at the top 10. If you ever look at top 10 Ipswich all-time appearances, he's always that guy that you think a lot of people go, Mick Stockwell. You know, he's a legend. I mean, what he did for our club, the games he played. I mean, he played 600 off, like 500.
Something like that, yeah.
He played hundreds, and it's just you know, he just goes under the radar all the time. And yet, bizarrely, Rich, you're not the first person to have him in your team. In fact, you're probably, I would say, 50% of people we've done so far put him in their team. So there you go. Perhaps he hasn't gone under the radar quite as much as we thought.
No, and again, it's an acknowledgement. He's really unfortunate to be a pro coming through just before the big money kind of hit the game, because now he'd be a really a Mick Stockwell from the early 90s would be highly sought after. You know, because he can play every position, he can score goals, he can defend. You know, you can't find these players all over the place. These are really rare, unique kind of players. But I think probably what gave him the edge and what endeared him to us was this. You know, this is his team. You know, and got a lovely Suffolk accent when you interview him. You know, that's what you want as well. You want people who've come through from the area to be given an opportunity, and therefore I had to have someone from, I think there's two Ipswich people. I don't know if is Mickey Stockwell Ipswich born? Possibly, I think he is.
Yeah, I think he's Ipswich born. He's certainly a very local lad. Yeah, I mean,
Definitely. So,
he's certainly been Ipswich a long time. So,
yeah. So basically, if he isn't, he's as good as. So he's in my team for that. And as I say, he's kind of in a defensive midfield position there, but I would expect him to be roaming all over the place, wherever he wants to go.
He certainly has. I think, apart from anything else with Mick, he's been in for other people's teams. So I think at right back, left back, strikers, and everything else. That's the thing about him. You see, he's wonderful. Yeah. So right, brilliant. Mick Stock was in there. Who's alongside him in that middle of the park then, or in the middle of the field, in midfield?
Yeah, I mean, this was the easiest bit for me. Really, no time at all. Jimbo Jewett and Matt Holland. I mean, I probably can just leave it at that, Mike.
I'll tell you what, those two boys, those two guys were terrific, weren't they? Absolutely fantastic footballers. Fantastic for Ipswich Town. I mean, and two completely different sort of personalities. But yeah, I mean, you don't even want to say anything, do you? You just left it. I don't blame you. I mean, you could just leave it.
Mic drop.
It's a mic drop.
Yeah, I mean, I will talk briefly about it. The Jim Jewett signing was one of the ones that made me the excitedest. There's a new word. I'm going with that as well. But when that loan became permanent, that was one of when you kind of thought, yeah, we've got, that loan spell. I remember the final game of the season at home, Sheffield United 4-1. I think Bajorton was kind of a precursor to his hat-trick game against Bolton the season afterwards in the playoffs, where single-handedly he was going to get us across the line. Now, results went against us that day, but he just set the bar so high. I mean, he would have probably wound up his fellow teammates a little bit, I'm sure, but it's only because he cares so much. He sets such high standards for both himself and those around him, and our level elevated just having him in the team. And what you get is creativity. You get a few goals. You can also take a set piece. My first away game, again, kind of talking about late bloomers, my first away game was Charlton. Charlton away in 1999-2000 when we beat them 3-1. They were winning they'd won the title. And we're getting the trophy at the Valley, and we needed to win to make sure that the second position spot went to the last day. And again, Majorton scored a free kick, I think, to set us up and running that day. That was one of my great memories of supporting Ipswich first away day. But yeah, I think Majorton just set that tone. And then alongside him, if you want someone to set an example in terms of hard work, in terms of attitude, in terms of leadership, but just being a quality footballer as well. We often forget that Matt Holland played in a World Cup for Republic of Ireland, scored goals, went on to have a really good career with Charlton, much, again, to our depression, probably sold on the cheap when we were in admin. But Mr. Ipswich, captain, fantastic. He's going to go around the perimeter and give everyone a round of applause after the match. What a great guy. And I'm sure still calls Ipswich's team. We've spoken to him a few times. I'm sure you guys have as well. And just the nicest person you could ever speak to, and a real big part. Another kind of low. What a great signing as well. Low on the radar, possibly. Good spot from Burley at Bournemouth. But what a player he turned out to be from those kind of low starting points. Maybe he was at West Ham, so he was always going to have quality, but yeah, just what he achieved for Ipswich first and foremost, and those memories of 1999-2000 through to wins at Anfield and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Matt Holland's got to be in there.
I mean, I find this really interesting, Rich, because obviously I'm doing this with this favourite talent with lots of people of different eras, and obviously a lot of people go back to Hunter and Beattie and even back to Ray Crawford and stuff. And you're coming from a new era, and it's lovely for me because that shows my age, really, quite frankly. I seem to have watched all these players from Hunterby. So, gosh, I think I wear quite well for someone who's only 36. But I mean, anyway, apart from that, Jim Majorton. See, I liked Jim a lot. Did a lot of interviews with him when I was on the green, and I always felt his time with Ipswich was rather sort of tinged with sadness when he left. The way he left as the manager, where he was sort of sacked basically as manager. And I'm always desperate to hope people didn't ever. That's all they remembered him for. And you just saying you don't remember him for that. You remember him for the player, and I think that's how he'd want to be remembered. He did all right as a manager. Don't get me wrong, but he still finished disappointing for him, and certainly it was all a bit of a shame. So you remember him as the player. Same with Matt Holland. Matt Holland, what a great guy. We all remember him as the player, and we remember him. So he wasn't, when people say, but sort of, not quite sort of in your face type player, but we still remember what a great player he was, and they both were, of course.
Yeah, on Magellan, I think probably my reflection on the end of his managerial tenure was more of an indictment on how Marcus Evans, that was right at the start of the Marcus Evans era, and basically set the tone for what
Yeah,
followed.
yeah.
I don't kind of buy into kind of karmic retribution, but you kind of feel like if you treat people the way that Marcus Evans kind of treated Jim Magellan towards the end, then you kind of reap what you sow a little bit there. And again, I know probably I look back on the managerial era, maybe a little bit blue-tinted spectacles. At that point, I wasn't going to every game. I'd moved away from the area. I was up in the Midlands, so I wasn't going every week. But someone who was massively motivated to succeed and someone who got us really close, and I thought possibly deserved a little bit further to, with the budget to try and do more. But as a player, yeah, I just think just set that bar so high. Matt Holland, people forget Matt Holland just kind of turned up at big moments to turn games in our favour and just get. For me, Matt Holland's in the team because, like Mickey Stockwell, he's going to run. That he's going to cover every blade of grass. There's a game that I recall 1999-2000 where Matt Holland, I think, is basically on his sick bed all week with flu or something like that, and we've got Forest on Sky on a Sunday. This is kind of autumn time, I think, in the 1999-2000 season. Matt Holland never misses a game, basically, never gets suspended, all that kind of stuff. Rocks up, gets through this game, white as a sheet, and gets on the end of a kind of a move to tap in the goal that gives us the win, one of our rare wins at the City Ground. So that's the kind of player that he is, and that's why he's got to be in the team. And I think people forget those kind of moments where he gets those goals. Bolton playoffs the year before we go up. There's some good goals in there. Yeah, leaders on the pitch. That's what we need.
And things with Matt Holland, of course, there's always this sort of idea that only the best players have to have that nasty streak in them. They have to have this nasty that's what makes them great players. Well, Matt Holland proved you don't have to have a nasty streak. You just have to work damned hard. You just got to be a talented footballer. You can he's still put in plenty of tackles. Don't fret yourself. And he still put his head in where it had to be. But overall, a damn nice guy. And of course, a brilliant footballer, which is why he's in there. Right. So brilliant. So you got those three midfielders there, Holland, Magellan and Stockwell. I like that. So that's Stockwell. So I suppose Magellan are playing just in front of Stockwell.
Yeah, I've got Stockwell just sitting in front of the back two because lacking a little bit of pace. But frankly, as I said, Stockwell could play wherever he wanted, and I think maybe he could stick him ahead of him in a kind of a number 10 position if it's a team we'd expected. I don't know who I'm talking about. This is all hypothetical, but you could stick him anywhere, couldn't you? But I did have a version of this team where Stockwell was right wing back. I think you mentioned people have been doing that, but yeah, he's sitting behind, and then that gives Magellan license to kind of sit and just spread passes, and Magellan can dash forward, can't he? So yeah.
Well, look, I hope everyone's joined us to Rich Woodward's favourite Ipswich Town 11 here on the Kings of Anglia podcast. I mean, it's great fun. I mean, it is just a fun thing. I mean, just throwing names, we're putting teams together. We don't care if that doesn't. We don't care if you think, oh, he can't play there, he couldn't play there. What's he do? We don't. This is a super. We're already coming a super team here with Rich, and we're now going to his now. But let's be honest, the strikers are sexy. We do all know that. We've had some great strikers at Ipswich Town over the years. So, Rich, go on then. Hit us with your front three.
My front three, there's two players that went straight in there. The two after Magellan and Holland. I'll come to in a second. I had a lot of second thoughts about this one, but purely just for entertainment value, he had to be in there. So my front three, left to right, are Martin Royster, up front Marcus Stewart, right wing, which he won't like, but he could do a job, Kieran Dyer.
Oh, wow. There's some players there, Rich. Go on. I like all of them. I must be honest, I like all of them for different reasons, for varying reasons. They're three terrific favourite players. Go on then. Martin Royster.
Yeah, it was. This is the one I've struggled with because I think, to be fair, his career did tail off a little bit. And I think in my team, maybe he'd be really good as an impact player. And I think that's what Burley saw him as well. But I just remember the Bradford game in the 2000-2001 season where the game was, we were 1-0 down to that rocket from Benito Carboni, game going nowhere, and then Royster scores twice, game flips on his head. And there were so many moments like that, trying to lob the keeper from the halfway line against Southampton from a free kick. Do you know what I mean? He can make stuff happen. And I think that set piece danger, that's something that I wanted as well. He's definitely got that, maybe a tad inconsistent, but just thought just for entertainment value and just for pure footballing kind of, he just doesn't care. I'm just going to try it. If it comes off, great. If not, which probably winds up Majority with my little formation thing he's alongside. He might get a few rollickings from Majority, but I just think what I did have before, and this is hot off the press, literally before we started. I'd shifted Dyer onto the left-hand side. Dyer was always going to be in the team. I tried to get him in as a number 10. It just didn't work. But I like the idea of Kieran Dyer being on the left and cutting in. And to be fair, Roycer and Dyer could do that. I did have Jonathan Walters on the right instead of Kieran Dyer because, again, another player where perhaps the expectations weren't particularly high. Majority signing maybe kind of has struggled with his career and tumbled down the divisions, ended up at Chester. But what he grew into, and particularly I just remember balls being pinged out to him on the right wing for him to win headers, but could play up front, was a focal presence, again, a bit of a bully. The hat trick at Bristol City is a good memory I've got, the 6-0, but he just missed out in the end because it's my favourite 11, isn't it? It's not kind of what's a good functional 11. So
Rich, listen, this is your favourite 11. If I had a pound coin, even if I had a 50p coin for everyone who told me my favourite 11 was completely useless because it didn't include Beattie, didn't include Hunter, didn't include Muren. And I said, look, it's my favourite. Anyway, so it's your favourite 11. Absolutely spot on. And Rooster. And from a journalistic point of view, I love Martin Rooster. I'll be honest with you, Rich. I'm glad you've mentioned him because when I was green editor, he gave some great green headlines like Rolls Rooster. Yeah. And when Martin McCutcheon was number 1 in the charts with My Perfect Moment, we did that as well. Martin's Perfect Moment. See, we had all these beautiful. I think he scored against Fulham. I think I can't remember. In 1-0 in the last minute, and the headline that goes, yes, Martin's Perfect Moment. I remember putting because she was in the charts at the time, and I think some of my fellow sports people on the desk time accused me of pilfering their headings. They said they'd already mentioned that the week leading up to it, but I hadn't heard them. I promise. But anyway, so
you got to be there. Yeah.
He had some great headings for us, which was fantastic. And Martin, of course, Wembley 2000, Rich.
Exactly right, and that's probably the peak moment, depressingly for me, in 2000. This time 22 years ago, whatever it is, and I think I said, did I say my first game was 20 years ago earlier at the start of the pod? 30 years ago, man, bloody hell, where does the time go? Yeah, that Wembley playoff final and that goal as well. Even probably the goal that there's 3 goals I think I shout the loudest for in my time watching Ipswich. I didn't sadly go to the Watford game where Chaplow scored that last minute winner. That might have been up there. But Roycer against Fulham, I definitely remember going hoarse at that last minute winner. The Bolton goal where he kind of runs through, similar to Barnsley, and then that Barnsley goal. Yeah, he just scored those goals at critical moments. And so you kind of want one of those talismans in your team, don't you?
And talking of goals at critical moments, Marcus Stewart.
Yeah, my favourite ever Ipswich Town footballer.
Yeah.
And one of these ones, again, there's a lot of, again, this probably shows me as a bit of a nerd rather than anything else, but Marcus Stewart is one of the rare instances in this team where I was a massive fan of him at Huddersfield.
Right.
I knew of him, and it's kind of one of those ones where you started to play Football Manager games. I was actually playing Premier Manager 98 at the time, and he was always one of those players. I think he scored quite routinely for us. I remember he scored in his debut for Bristol Rovers against us at the start of the 91-92 season. Really young, but just one of those rare instances as an Ipswich fan where we sign a player at the peak of their powers from a rival. It's never really happened since, and that signing just totally shocked everyone. Probably more Huddersfield fans, frankly, because they tumbled down the league after that. But just the best forward at the division at the time, playing for us. He had a good start, tailed off a bit, and then just, again, scored at Wembley. But 2000, 2001, just totally just set the league alight, scored some just lovely instinctive goals, creative goals. One of my good memories is off the shoulder, probably meant to header it, but off the shoulder against Arsenal at home at the start of that season. But yeah, those 2 Bolton goals, I just can't, I can't get past them. So Marcus Stewart is my favourite 11, is my favouriteest of the 11.
Favouriteest of the 11. Excellent. But I mean, quite honestly, you're absolutely right. I mean, and Marcus Stewart has appeared in so many of these favourite 11s. And again, I'm talking about people who've seen Town back in the in the great Robson days. Still, Marcus Stewart can compete. you know, against some of those top players. You know, so it's fantastic. He's a great lad. I mean, you know, we got to know him quite well at the East Anglia Day Times. We did columns in the Green and stuff. He was only here a couple of seasons, though, 2 or 3 seasons. It's bizarre that such a short period of time. You go back to Robson's. I mean, apart from Muir and Tyson, who weren't that long, but I mean, a lot of the players were there for decades, you know. And I don't know how many appearances Marcus made for Ipswich. It weren't that many, and probably 120 or something. It wouldn't have been 200 or 300 or anything. Yeah, good shout. And finally, of course, well, young Kieran on the right.
Just one more bit on Marcus Stewart as well, and the promotion. Whatever the 20th, 30th, I keep getting my 30s and 20s mixed up. The anniversary video that Kings of Anglia or
Andy Warren, Andy Warren did. Yeah.
What a great piece of footage that is. The highlight of that video is, I think it's Andy asks Marcus Stewart, "What does Ipswich Town mean to you?"
Yeah.
And he sheds a tear, and that for me is, you know, you're right. He wasn't with us for too long, but those memories, him showing that those memories mean as much as to him as they do for us, is something that just endears him even more. So good shout out for that. If Ross is doing some video editing or whatever, it'll stick a link in the top right hand corner, Ross, because you can find that video and just enjoy that moment. But
Andy actually, sorry to interrupt there. Andy showed me that clip before he actually put the whole video out. He said, "Have a look at this," because he knew I knew Marcus quite well from the Greenham days, and I was wow. And he said, "Yeah, no, it's completely just happened." He said, and I said to Marcus, "Are you happy for me to leave that in?" And Marcus, because I obviously had to do it again, and he had to ask the question again. You know, what's it mean to you? And Marcus turned and said, "Yeah, leave it in."
Yeah.
But Andy said, "Gosh," even he was like, "Wow, that is so powerful." You know, it really did mean a lot to him.
Yeah, and another person who features in that video is, I think he's the first person that you see.
Yeah, he
is Kieran Dyer, and Kieran Dyer. It's kind of tinged with a little bit of disappointment and sadness. Inevitable that he was going to leave the club after that missing out in 98, 99, and he's another one who tried to drag us over the line single-handedly as well, scoring looping headers from out of nowhere, and his sadness at full time, chucking his boots into the North Stand and all that kind of stuff. But in the team, just because he could play anywhere across that front line, really. Probably preferred to be a number 10 or play centrally, but out on the right, he's got pace, is going to score goals. But again, Mr. Ipswich. But for me, is probably maybe the greatest product of our youth academy. And again, what I really recommend reading his book, really honest, and does a great interview, done interviews with us, I'm sure with you, and done one with Renegade Statman recently, and just one who, again, his career is kind of tinged with disappointment and sadness. Tried to do things the right way, and just events conspire around him and stuff like that. But big moments for Ipswich. We talked about that Bolton game, but scoring against Watford with a broken leg, scoring that goal against Stockport, running the length of the pitch and dinking it over the keeper. Just quality footballer. And yeah, I could not have him on my team.
I remember he lobbed. I remember going to a sports dinner, and I'd asked him for a shirt he was at Newcastle at the time. I was good friends with Kieran, and he said, "I'll get you a shirt." And I thought, okay, well, I didn't see him often. And he scored a goal at Everton for Newcastle, where he lobbed. He flicked the ball over a defender's head. This is in his own half, and ran. And the ball bounced once, it bounced twice, and he then lobbed the keeper from about 30 yards for Newcastle. This was not Ipswich. Newcastle against Everton, and fantastic goal. And the shirt appeared. His mum phoned me and said, "Kieran's left the shirt in his front porch. He popped home last night or whatever and he's gone off again." And it was that shirt from that game, still covered in dirt, mind you, and muck, but raised about 600 quid for this, a charity we think we went to, which is fantastic. Great player. And Ipswich through and through, and people, and that 6 million quid, right, that we got off Newcastle that year helped George Burley. You talk of Marcus Stewart, you talk of Gary Croft, we talk of John McGreal. These players all came because Kieran Dyer had cost us nothing, had suddenly got 6 million quid for him from Newcastle.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the sadness kind of tinged in with it as well. That he wasn't part of that team, but as you say quite rightly, what a difference that money made to the club at the time, and Jermaine Wright in there as well with that money. But yeah, I think again, kind of poignant moment is him applauding the team at the Wembley playoff final in his England tracksuit. An international. There's quite a few internationals in this 11, and Kieran should have made more England appearances. I'm sure, he looks back on that, and man, what not many people in society make it as footballers, even less make it as international footballers. And so, kid from Ipswich through the academy, Premier League player, international. Yeah, he was the third name on the team sheet, behind Magilton and Holland, and then Marcus Stewart after him.
Fantastic. Well, look, Rich. Hey, look. Look. Excitedly, we now have your 11, and I've forgotten what it is already. So you're going to have to just take me through it before we have a few subs, and then the manager. Just a couple of subtle way. I mean, you can have 8 subs, because I can't remember who had 8 subs. Somebody, I can't remember. It might have been Keith Dell. I can't remember. Somebody had 8 subs because they just want to go crazy. But what's the team again then, Rich?
Yeah, so from front to back, Craig Forrest in goal, back 4 of Cresswell, DeVos, McGreal and Tarico. Sitting in front of them, providing an ever dependable shield, the Duracell bunny that is Mickey Stockwell, the creative and the dynamism of Matt Holland and Jim Magilton in centre midfield, and the front 3 scoring from the halfway line, or trying to score from the halfway line, Martin Roycer. Running in, cutting in, tricking, skinning his markers, Kieran Dyer, and up front, dropping the shoulder twice, 3 times, and then slotting it in, Marcus Stewart. And captain is Matt Holland, obviously.
I like.
There are captains throughout that team, Mike. That's also what I was after as well.
Yeah, you have got captains throughout the team. I like that team though, Rich. Good, nice. I like it a lot. I think a lot of people will go, nice, and that's a nice team. So that'd be exciting. I pay to watch that all day long. Subs then, Rich.
So I'm a bit light, obviously, on the field with front men. So this was quite easy. I have put John Walters on the bench. I have to, because of the reasons I talked about. He's probably one thing, I guess, that you would say this team lacks is maybe a physical presence. And it's possibly a team that is dependent on playing the ball on the ground. So John Walters allows you to mix it up. I think probably Darren Bent got to be on the bench as well. He was close in there. I'd quite like the idea of a Marcus Stewart, Darren Bent. I don't think we saw that partnership when in 2001, 2002, maybe towards the end of the season. But yeah, another youth product, just a goal machine, Darren Bent, and another striker that I put in there, Chris Cuomby, was again similar to Craig Forrest, just one of those players that heartbroken when he left for Arsenal, but just quality football and someone who was kind of just getting to his peak with Ipswich, and then obviously the Arsenal move didn't really work out for him. No. In midfield, Tommy Miller's got to be in there. I've got to have a penalty taker in there, Mike. If we're in the 119th minute of extra time in a playoff game against another hypothetical favourite 11, I need to bring him on to take penalties for me. So Tommy Miller in there, and again a goal scorer, 2 spells, 3 spells even, I think. Didn't he? Tommy Miller kind of.
I don't know. I can't remember 2 or 3, but I'll tell you what, you're talking about a player who, again, a lot of people have mentioned. It's because, again, Tommy Miller. Do people think he went under the radar? Well, obviously, he quite clearly didn't, because a lot of people remember him for that great couple of seasons with Shefke and Benty.
Yep. I saw the kind of latter stages of John Walk's career, and he was in that Mickey Stockwell spot, but then I thought DeVos, McGreal, John Walk, this is a very one-paced defensive back line.
Yes. So, you don't Mbappe up against them, probably. It would have been
no. So yeah, it's a weird thing to say. John Walk, I'm putting John Walk on the bench, Mike.
Why not?
But again, I didn't see him at the peak of his powers, but I did see him score free kicks against Leicester, and I did see that you could tell that just culture player. And, I think the best players who can read the game, who can see the game, often move their way back down the pitch, because obviously they can't do the running, but they can read the game and they know the instincts of the players they're coming up against, because 20 years ago they were doing that themselves. So Walkie's just probably, it's a weird one when you kind of think how lucky we are as a club to have players we talk about like BT and Mariner, but I just don't think John Walk gets, he's obviously still around, which is great, and I just think we should. Where's the statue for Johnny Walk, Mike?
Well, I was lucky enough to see him play through all those years. Obviously, when's the next Ipswich Town player going to get 38 midfielder, get 38 goals in the season? I think we'll be around for many more years before that ever happens.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, if we dropped out the National League, which hopefully we won't. Obviously, we're going back, we're going up, not down. But you know what I mean? He was awesome. He just had this knack. It was bizarre. He just used to have this knack of being in the right place at the right time. And bear in mind, he was in a team of goal scorers as well. So it's not as if he was the only man who could score a goal. Well, there you go. That's a thought.
So, Yeah, I've realised that I'm lacking midfielders, but my team is so front and back skewed anyway. I don't think that's a problem. So yeah, Walkie's in there. In terms of defenders, I mentioned Titus. He's got to be in there, just for that one season. I was mulling. It's my sub, so I can do what I want. And
You can do what
frankly,
you like, Rich.
it's the
Rich,
11, isn't it?
listen, do what you like.
Ian Westlake is on my bench
Why
from
not?
I guess it was what season was it? 0405, I think. Just absolutely burst on the scene. You know, someone whose career sadly tailed off. I'm not sure of the background behind that, but again, he was one who was single-handedly trying to drag us up the pitch, scoring goals. Sheffield United away, a lovely shot across the keeper low. Just scored lots of goals from this part of the world as well. Came through the academy, and I think did he hit the post in the last minute, in the very last minute against West Ham at Upton Park as well. But just had dynamism and energy. I think maybe people don't look back and remember Ian Westlake's contribution to that team because, as I say, it wasn't sustained, but kind of similar.
He did very well,
and
did very well. Very local, and playing a bit of local football as well. I think for Needham Market. But I mean, it's not the players who dropped down, but that's not the point. He was part of Joe Royal's. You know, it was a good player.
Yeah, I just chuck him in there just for because he's probably a name that people haven't thought about for a while.
Exactly.
Titus. Again, probably predominantly for that 2000 and 2001 season. Again, just from out of nowhere, a couple of loan spells on the sidelines, and suddenly he turns up in a pre-season friendly. I think was it Fiorentina? Maybe I think we played a big team in a pre-season friendly at Portman Road, and Titus is in the team. And you kind of think, wow, he's given himself a real opportunity to be in the team, and lo and behold, he's in the team, and that's the kind of tradition that you want Ipswich Town managers to follow is if they're good enough, they're old enough kind of thing. And what a season he had. That goal against Sunderland, the one home game, Mike, that I missed that season was that Sunderland game. But it's one of my favorite goals to post on Twitter because it
kickstarted us, didn't it? It kickstarted our season. That again, it was one of those iconic goals that just. Well, how are we going to get on in this league? How are we going to get on? How are we going to cope? How are we going to be good enough? Are we, all the questions, and suddenly they were answered, and that win, over Sunderland was right up there because suddenly we got a bit of confidence and off we're going,
Exactly right. And a great run from Bramble and the finishes is unerring. The two best bits for that goal, apart from the goal itself, obviously, is Marcus Stewart's little dinked pass to play him in, by the way. Watch that back. I'll retweet that. But Marcus Stewart's pinpoint kind of volleyed pass to get Bramble in behind. But the celebration at the end, where it's kind of like, what do I do? I don't score goals, guys. What do I do? And he gets piled on instead, which and that kind of sums up the kind of the man. I think we don't hear a huge amount from Titus, and I imagine he's probably quite humble. And if we'd hear about him, he'd probably play down maybe his success a little bit. But at the time, what a big player he was, and still and played lots of tens of games in the Premier League as well. He
went off to Newcastle and Sunderland, didn't he? Played for both those,
Academy product,
went for top clubs, Champions League stuff. So brilliant, right? So is that how many subs is that, Rich? In the end,
I'll chuck a keeper. You
got a keeper as well.
It was a toss up. It was a toss up between Richard Wright, and Craig Forrest. For sentimental reasons, I went with Craig Forrest, but Richard Wright probably the best keeper overall, I think, in my time watching Town. And again, heartbreak when he left for Arsenal, wasn't it? So again, it kind of keeping the theme of maybe this is an insight into me and my personality a little bit. Got to have a bit of sadness in there, like the lights and the shades. That's what we want.
Don't overthink it, Rich. Don't overthink it. That's what I'm the same as you. But I say to myself, don't overthink it, Michael. You're starting to overthink things now. No, it's nothing to do with it. It's just you've got your favourite 11, and these are the people. But well, that's brilliant. Well, before you tell us your manager, then, Rick, let's go through those subs again. There was so many in the end. I got carried away.
This will be a test of whether I can actually even remember them. So John Walters is in there. Darren Bent is in there. Chris Cuomby is in there. Tommy Miller's in there. Ian Westlake's in there. John Walk's in there. Titus Bramble's in there. I think I've missed someone out. Probably Richard Wright is in there. I think I missed someone else as well. I'm sure people will tell me. But
that's perfect. Anyway, big subs bench. We don't care about that. Right? Who's the manager? This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean. Do you know what? I was really close to going Kieran McKenna, but I think he needs a few more games under his belt. But one of the few Ipswich Town managers I've actually had the pleasure to speak to, and just has an aura about him of just total intelligence, emotional intelligence, football IQ, and clearly a very gifted coach. I've got really high hopes for him. I just hope that all of the success that we all hope is going to comes to fruition, and also that if that does happen, he sticks around as well, because what a legacy he could create here. But it was a no-brainer really for me. It was George Burley's in charge, and the 3 years leading up to, and the season, the 2000-2001 season, just for me, my highlights, the best times for me watching Ipswich Town. So for that reason, again, he's probably the coach that's going to bring the best out of this quite attacking team. So it was a no-brainer. Though one, apart from McKenna, which I think was just in there just so I could talk about him briefly, Joe Royle. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on Joe Royle, Mike. Do you think, obviously there was a little bit of this weird Norwich thing that I don't think ever was a real thing. Obviously he was a player there, and that was maybe, and the Man City thing maybe was more of a factor that people just didn't really take to him. But in terms of entertainment and in terms of a good high caliber manager, and knowing what would happen after he left, do you think Joe Royle doesn't get the credit he deserves?
I don't think he does. I mean, it was an extraordinary little period of time for Joe. He's got, was it 2 playoffs? He got us two playoffs, with no money. I mean, this is
admin as well. Yeah.
This is not a guy who was given 10 million quid to go and strengthen up or do it. He had no money. I mean, a really down to earth, solid, nice guy. Scouser, had that Scouser about him. I remember in the sports department, as I said, I think I mentioned this before on this pod, he'd say, phone me up at 8 o'clock every morning. I'll give you a line for the newspaper, whatever the latest is, what's happened overnight, always very pleasant. And he got a lot out of that team, And, we were damned unlucky not to go up in one of his 2 seasons in those playoffs, to be honest. And the football, the brand of football. I mean, Shefke, who would play Shefke Kuchi? I mean, how many managers would pick him and put so much faith in him like Joe did? I mean, Joe was a big, strong striker himself, wasn't he? But Shefke was not just that. I mean, Shefke was the first one to admit he wasn't a great footballer, but my God, did Joe Royle bring something out of it. And of course, with Dan Ben and then Tommy Miller as well. We talk about Tom in a lot of other clubs. Tommy Miller would just been not ordinary, but he ended up being a really top player for us and great memories. And Joe Royle, I think he wasn't there that long. That's probably why people don't over-remember him. Then we went to the Magilton era. And then, of course, we've had the everything that's happened since. Of course, Joe was sort of squashed between the great, exciting George Burley era. I know ended disappointingly, but it was obviously a great period of time. And perhaps it just got lost. Perhaps Joe just got lost in into Burley, and everyone was so disappointed what happened with George. Because we hoped it was going to go on forever like Bobby Robson, didn't we? I mean, we hoped George Burley's going to be on for another 10 years like Bobby.
Yeah, and that's that was part of why I kind of thought twice about George Burley, because the lows that followed were really low, weren't they? Yeah. And arguably set us back. Yeah. We got close to the playoffs. I think when Joe Royle came in, I think we ended up just missing out. I think 7th maybe.
7th, right?
I think just because of the way that Burley just, he brought the Bobby Robson way of doing things back to life, didn't he? And
the thing with Burley was that he had almost the same start that Robson had. Pretty poor, to be honest. I mean, Burley's first few months, 6 months, were very ordinary. And of course, we had the Man United defeat, and then the start of the next season wasn't that great. But then it started to build. Well, that's exactly what happened with Robson. You know the story of Robson and the Cobbolds, and when fans were calling for Robson to go. He'd only been there sort of 6 months, and the Cobbolds gave him a longer contract and apologised to Robson for the fans' behaviour, that type of thing. That's how the Cobbles, and then it started to slowly build. And you thought that's what, and George was doing it, wasn't he? I mean, he did it. We got there, and he did it, and then you just wanted it to continue. So I think it was such a big disappointment when it all started to go wrong. And Joe then followed. Obviously, he wasn't, and maybe Joe was just sort of lost a little bit in that the club had just, even though we still got to 2 playoffs, and the West Ham games were absolutely terrific. I mean. Remember them greatly. So.
Should have gone upwards massively, mate. Hey ho, that's Ipswich Town fans, isn't it? That's what we.
Quick word about the future, then, Rich. Looking forward to this season, and you've mentioned Kieran McKenna already. I mean, let's say a quick couple of thoughts about go on then. What Ipswich Town got to do? What do you think about this season?
Yeah, I guess the thing that still bugs me about League One is what we're going to do against the teams who like to just sit back and contain. That for me, if we can figure out an antidote to that, because we dropped so many points against those kind of teams, Cambridge at home definitely sticks in my mind. Morecambe away, Cheltenham, we just, if we can figure out that, and obviously we can't read a huge amount into Needham Market, but just the movement, the flexibility that McKenna's trying to build into that team, I think there's a little bit more recruitment to go. Personally, we might need some players to leave first, but it's a rare time where you've got fans on side, you've got ownership fully motivated and switched on, you've got a manager at the peak of his powers, and in terms of a squad, you'll struggle to find a better squad of players anywhere in League One. So the ingredients are there. We're talking 16,000 season ticket holders in League One. We're not a Sunderland who are going to get potentially 40,000 or what have you. But at this level, we are such a massive club. It's not really worked out for us so far, being a big fish in a small pond. But I think McKenna is wise enough, and we certainly saw enough at the end of last season to give us hope and optimism. We just need to start the season strong. Just get those early wins under our belt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Play the kids in the Pizza Cup and the League Cup. Stay in those as long as we can as well. And momentum, isn't it, Mike? And Sonny, you've got that momentum. You become, a force, and teams don't want to play you. I think we've lacked that. We've always tailed off when we've built momentum under Lambert and Cook previously. In fact, we never built any momentum under Cook, did we? So I'm hopeful.
Excellent. Well, that's great. I just hope we get a few more. My biggest wish for Ipswich Town season is get a few more people in the box. That's what I'd like to see. Get
Score
a few
a
more
set
people
piece.
in the box.
Score a set piece, Mike. Yeah.
Set pieces. And when a cross comes in, there's 3 or 4 players in the box. I know they're going to have to work damn hard because some are going to have to get straight back again when it gets cleared. But that's what I'd like to see. I'm sure McKenna knows that. Listen to me, is he? So it doesn't make any difference. Anyway, yeah, looking forward to the season like you are, Rich. Rich, thanks for everything you do with your podcast and stuff. And thanks for giving us your time here on Kings of Anglia. And it's a great... hey, let's finish it off then. Give us we won't go through all subs because I can't remember them either. But give us your final Rich Woodward, Favourite Town 11.
Thank you, Mike. And I love these as well. So thank you so much for having me on and letting me talk through my happy and sad times of supporting Ipswich. My team, Craig Forrest, Aaron Cresswell, easy for me to say, Jason DeVos, John McGreal, Maurizio Tirico, Mickey Stockwell, Jim Magilton, Matt Holland, the captain, Martin Roycer, Kieran Dyer, and up front, the man, Marcus Stewart.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Mike.